Good evening, Middletown. How are you today? All right. Camera's on, everything's good. We're doing well. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. My name is Paul Capera. I am the Park and Rec Director for Middletown. I just take a minute to introduce my staff. I have the Assistant Park and Rec Director, Patrick Graham, in the hallway making sure everybody signs in. I have Nicole Tenner is working the Zoom room, one of our program specialists, and Joanne Morelli in the back. From Simone Collins, we have our consultants. We have Bill Simon in the back corner. We have Anita, Toby, and Derek Derica. Derek is the Park and Rec Director for Upper Dub in Montgomery Township. And then just wanted to, if you have any questions, if there's an elephant in the room, introduce it, okay? If you have any questions about the stormwater thing that you got in the mail today, we'll be happy to take that. Hit Patrick or I, we'll take you in the lobby and we'll talk to you. So it's just like full stop shop tonight, okay? This is the third and final public meeting, so we thank you so much for coming out tonight. The survey, Anita will describe the survey and when that closes. So it's a comprehensive process, so I do want to thank everybody for coming out. I do want to introduce Joe Morrissey over here from Fox Lanes. He is the developer for the Shady Brook Farm development over by the Silver Lake. So if you wanted to talk to him, did I say that right? Okay, so just comprehensive. You got the guys from the skate park over there if you want to talk to how great the skate park is, so appreciate it. All right, I'm going to shut up now and I'm going to hand it over to Anita so she can take us through the PowerPoint.
Thank you, Paul. I'll reiterate the thanks. This has been such a fun project. And you might all remember that the last Park and Rec plan was 2005. So it's timely. And we're at a point now where there's so many great conversations. I think Toby and I said, this is finally when we're starting to get it. We're starting to understand and give you folks one last time to really talk about things that are still important to you. So this evening, let me introduce myself again. Anita Nardone. I'm a civil engineer, and I've worked with Simone Collins for about 4 years now. And I'm the project manager. So Toby Levin, who is our registered landscape architect, and of course Derek, who's a certified rec professional. It's a great team. Artistry, engineering-related things, understanding the real workings of Park and Rec's department. So we've enjoyed this. We feel like we really are starting to understand and get Middletown. And we know how much it's loved. There's a great feeling whenever we talk to people. I was at Earth Day. That was a wonderful thing. What we'd like to do tonight is to explain for the people online who've never participated before that this is a comprehensive park, recreation, open space, greenway, and trails. Now, if that's not a mouthful, what is, right? This was paid for by a grant that Middletown Township got from the DCNR, the State Department of Natural Conservation Resource, right? So this is something that is not a cost to the township. DCNR funds many improvements, so doing it their way is sort of a way that you position yourself as a township to go after future grants. The purpose of this plan is to plan for have a plan for the Park and Rec Department for the next 10 to 15 years. What do we need to do now to be ready to prepare Middletown Township for the future and to have
recording in progress
that are things that are going to be, have a durable life, right? So really a cookbook is what this plan is going to be. What it's not going to be is an exact plan of exactly the way, one of the parks, Cobalt Ridge, is going to do this, this, and that, right? It's not that. It's a higher level, something to plan for. So what we're going to do tonight is to kind of give you what we felt the visions for this plan, and then give you examples of the kinds of recommendations that we are making under 6 visions. We want to hear from you whether you agree that that is a good vision. What would you add to it? What would you change from the things that we're going to present tonight? So that's what we're asking your input. So let's get started, and I guess I'll start with finding the clicker. great thing. Okay. Darn. Okay, now I heard a buzz. Nope, not working. Sorry. Is it gonna? Is it going to work now? It will. Thank you. All right. The agenda. Introductions, which we already did, thanks to Paul. I'm going to go over the project schedule. Number 2, what we've heard. The public participation project, part of this project, included a public opinion survey, about 25 questions, that started right after the holiday season. Up to now, you'll see exactly what we've heard and how many. Very impressive number. We've talked to lots of groups. We've talked to lots of community stakeholders, and we've heard a lot of things, and we've listened, hopefully, to you. We've had a focus group with the organized athletic associations. Next, we're going to talk about those visions that I talked about. And the next part, under number 4, we are going to show you examples of recommendations under those visions, just to give you a taste. If we did all 53 recommendations that are in draft form right now, we'd be here for a long time. So we want to just give you a taste of what we think are the most important, impactful to you based on what we heard from the survey. Next, any questions and feedbacks. What we'd like to do is go through certain sections and then stop. And I think it makes sense, Toby and I thought, to stop at certain points to hear your questions on those specific sections. So we'll do it that way, but we're open to anything. And maybe at the end, if there's something you haven't heard, please, that's when we'd love to hear what you'd like to say. Here is our team. Like we said, Toby, Anita, Bill Collins, and Derek. And certainly fabulously working with Paul and Patrick and Joanne and Nicole, who've been great help. I can't believe they even have time to talk to us when I think of how much they actually do. So, our schedule. In gray are all the things that we've accomplished thus far. We have a very dedicated steering committee who advises us through this process. So we've met with them 3 times, actually 4 times. We met this week to review these recommendations that we're going to talk about tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about those recommendations. Then we're going to launch into the full-scale development of the plan and the report. We'll meet with the committee in June and take in all their comments, revise it again, and put out a draft to all of you online to see what exactly this process has resulted in for a plan. And then certainly presenting it at a public meeting to the Board of Supervisors. From there, the Board of Supervisors will act as to whether adopt it or ask for additional recommendations or revisions, and maybe it will be pushed forward a little bit past September. So basically, getting the full plan together will be the bulk of our work for the next month. All right, a little update on all of these public participations. 1,355 responses to the survey. Paul Capera, who was going to sneak out the back, that is a fabulous number. It takes a record, I'll have to tell you. We thought we had a community where we did this type of study at 1,100, but Middletown Township beat that record in our office. So that's a fabulous response based on a population of about 4,600. I know this survey will be open through June 1st. And every time that Patrick gives a nice nudge, we get a nice bump in responses. We gave you a summary at the last public meeting on about 10 or 12 questions, what people said in response. And I'm just going to do a kind of a quick survey here. Raise your hand if you've already responded to the survey. That is a great answer. Thank you so much. So the biggest question, the big thing I want you to concentrate is that there has been, even though we've had over 20% increase in responses since March, there has been really no substantive change in the responses that we've noted. The percentages that you see for what we have, what should be the top priorities in Middletown, have remained essentially the same for the past month and a half. And number 1 out at 67% is the development of the Township Trail Pathway Sidewalk System. affectionately known as the MIP, the Middletown Multimodal Improvement Plan that was approved in January of 2024. Number 2 is the preservation and or protection of open space, 50%, 52%. Number 3 is adding or enhancing the amenities at the existing parks. And then the rest are very specifically very grouped together, offer a greater variety of community events, offer a greater variety of recreation programs, and the creation of new parks did kind of make it into the teens, and nothing that they really like everything about Middletown as it is are 2%. I wanted to just go through 2 slides to tell you what we heard. We had breakout sessions in our public meeting number 2, and people crowded around maps, and they drew things for us, and we drew things, and they kind of talked about things that were important to them. So let's just go through some of the key takeaways. Again, connectivity, connecting my place, my neighborhood to other neighborhoods and to the parks and the schools that are close to my neighborhoods. Top priorities being Core Creek, the community park, and the community center. The diversity and the quantity of programming is good, but access for casual and drop-in athletics could be improved. Did I miss one in there? Generational projects. We asked if you had every dollar you could possibly have and would wish for Middletown, what would that project be? And these were the kinds of answers that we got. Amphitheater, a place for public gatherings, right? Trail connections between Core Creek and the Delaware River. Wouldn't that be amazing to get that far, to connect local trails to more regional trails, to get to real long distances, especially along the Levittown green belts. We're going to hear more about that. The NSD, those are the Neshaminy School District. That was also a request. A bird sanctuary, a nature center, a turf field complex, a wood-borne pedestrian tunnel. I'm going to make a little plug for this. This was a big issue that was part of the MIP. 3 years ago, Simone Collins did the MIP. And the concept of navigating from the south part of the township to the north at that wood-borne was obviously, and you live it, so I don't have to explain it to you. Part of that MIP was to break down a project to connect from the Oxford Valley Mall all the way up through the tunnel to Stiers with then connections to Core Creek. That is a generational project. But that's a little simulation in the picture in the slide there of what something like that could look like. Lastly, an indoor recreation center. That was mentioned quite a few times. The priorities. What should priorities be for your capital improvements? Twin Oaks Park came up with field and playground improvements and a paved path to really make it more than just fields, improved lighting and safety throughout the park system, and then specifically Middletown Community Park, playground improvements, expanding the skate park, basketball offerings, parking lots, improvements, and improved connections from that park as well. So those key person interviews that I mentioned to you, just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of example. On the right-hand side are the different agencies that we talked to. The school districts, Steyr Farm, Heritage Conservancy, various Bucks County offices, the emergency responders, those fabulous people who take care of us here, Wood Services, the intermediate unit, neighboring Park and Rec directors met with us and gave a lot of their time, which was fabulous for Patrick and Paul, to compare and contrast things that are happening in Middletown with our neighbors, the senior center, the boroughs, St. Mary's, and all of the staff right here in Middletown. But what types of information do we get, and what kind of things make sense that help us with this kind of a process? For instance, St. Mary's Hospital. We go into that meeting, we say, Toby and I, wouldn't it be nice if we could use something in their campus to make connections to some nice open space like the Neshaminy Creek? Well, they have a trail system. Well, it's a private trail system. Would they be interested in researching how we could possibly have public access on their property, which would then connect us into? Those are the kinds of conversations that we have. Heritage Conservancy, which is a partner in Stiers Orchard, They are very interested with the township and the farmer to expand programming there. Talk about what kinds of things we could do there. Wood Services, a fabulous part of this community with such a large population, very interested in integrating. They were excited about what they had. They want to show us. They would love to consider some partnerships with the township. So these are the kinds of conversations that we have that start to lead us to possibilities for what we might make for recommendations. All right, at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Toby. We're going to start by taking you through all 6 of the visions, and keep notes, because if we've missed anything, we want to hear about it. So, thanks for fixing my clicker.
Of course. Absolutely.
Don't make me have to do that, okay?
I'll do my best. I'll do my best. I just want to thank you guys again for being here tonight. This is really a great opportunity for us to hear from you what it is that you want out of your park system, and really allows us to make this report a report that will be useful for you and really represents your visions of what your community could be and your visions for what your park system can be. These draft visions are really the 6 visions that we've used to frame our thinking about the park system as a whole, where its strengths are, where there's room for improvement, and where there's desire to expand that park system. I'm going to go through all 6 of them, and then I'll talk about how those visions are connected to the recommendations. And then at that point, I'll open it up for questions and comments you may have. But I want to get through all 6 of these visions so that you can really understand what the expanse of our thinking is before we get into additional questions. So vision number 1 is accessible, safe, modern township parks. The Middletown community envisions its parks to be accessible, safe, and inclusive recreation facilities that deliver people to healthy outdoor places where they may interact comfortably and peacefully. To put it in a little more everyday language, how can we ensure that Middletown parks can be enjoyed by all Middletown residents? Vision 2, parks linked to neighborhoods by safe pedestrian and bike routes. We've heard that the Middletown community desires the safe bicycle and pedestrian routes that were described in the 2024 Multimodal Improvement Plan to connect township neighborhoods to parks, preserves, and open spaces inside Middletown Township, and to the regional trails and bike routes that extend into the neighboring municipalities. We all know that the edge of Middletown is not the edge of your life, so you want to connect out as well. And how can we ensure safe access to Middletown parks and recreation facilities for all residents? Vision 3 is recreation program excellence. Middletown residents and township staff will continue to work collectively to ensure the township legacy of excellent programming by continuing to serve all ages and abilities and to promote physical, mental, social, and emotional health for all users. Or to put it more simply, how can we continue to improve Middletown recreational offerings? We know that you all really appreciate the great diversity of programming that is offered already, but how can that continue to be even better than it is today? For Vision 4, increased availability and access to open space. The Middletown community seeks to add recreation opportunities to the township park system through strategic acquisitions that increase acreage under municipal stewardship, as well as improve public access to existing township-owned open space. How can we improve access to open space for all residents of Middletown? And then Vision 5, efficient and sustainable parks and recreation management, maintenance, and administration. Middletown Township will continue its mission to deliver excellent park and recreation experiences to the community who take pride in their neighborhoods and history. Or, again, put it a little more simply, how can we provide good parks and services efficiently? And then finally, Vision 6 here, township policy and ordinances to support recreation needs with funding strategies to achieve multifunctional infrastructure improvements. Middletown Township seeks to balance development with quality of life needs and the modernization of infrastructure that can serve multiple needs, including transportation, ecological restoration, stormwater management, and recreation. Or, again, a little more simply, how can we implement the recommendations that we're making? So, as I mentioned, the visions are really the framework that we're using to understand what it is that we all want out of this the Middletown park system. The visions, they describe a desired future state, or maybe they describe a desired current state that we want to maintain. That then feeds into some goals that we've created that fit under the umbrella of each vision, and those are specific, typically measurable milestones that promote that vision. And then we get into the goals, which is the real or the recommendations, which are the really nitty-gritty level of this is what we think that you should do to improve your park system. And those are the actions that can be taken to achieve those goals. So the vision, we really start with what do we want to see, what would it take to make that possible, and what actions can we do to make those goals achieve that vision. So before I get into the recommendations, I'll be presenting three recommendations in the next few slides. Are there any questions or comments that anyone wants to share about the visions that we've presented? Do they feel accurate to you? Is there anything that we missed? And it's okay if we got it all right. We love to hear that. If you want to come up and pat me on the back, I am available. Or if we got it all wrong, that's also okay. There's no comments are inappropriate at this point. And if you don't have any, that's also okay. Nicole, do we have any online? All right. Then we will continue into the recommendations. So the first recommendation that I'm going to talk about here, we're calling the Middletown Parks Accessibility Strategy. And this kind of fits under both Visions 1 and 2 about providing safe and accessible parks for everyone. And this strategy is really about how we get people to parks and open space resources and achieve recreation access and equity for everyone. And the kind of three considerations that we include under this recreation access and equity thought are accessibility within the parks, improving access to existing places within that last half mile. We all know that getting from where you get off the plane to your house is the hardest part of the trip most times. So how do we get that last leg of the trip to the parks accessible to everyone? And then also adding park space and acreage really is the role that equity plays in this thought, in this strategy, is where are there places that don't have parks but need to have parks. Then we look at the infrastructure that's in place to achieve this accessibility. We're looking at the sidewalk network and where there are gaps in that network that we can fill, where we can provide links to transit routes like the SEPTA station, where there are trails and greenways and where those gaps exist in that system as well as where we can link to more local, maybe a private trail in a development, or to the more local neighborhood level access. And then where are there obstacles? And those obstacles might be infrastructure, they might be ownership. There was a kind of high-profile park project that is actually opening up this weekend down in Philadelphia along the Schuylkill River Trail. They call it the Christian to Crescent stretch of that trail. It's a half-mile stretch of that trail. It cost $48 million to construct because there is existing infrastructure in the form of a freight rail line that runs around an industrial district in that part of the Schuylkill River shores. And so they weren't able to build the trail on land, and they actually had to build out over the river and have a boardwalk and a bridge. And that's why it cost $48 million. So what this might look like here in Middletown, we looked at how could we create, what would the accessibility strategy be like for Firefighters Park? We know this is a park that is well loved in your community, well used. It was before the expansion of the services at Middletown Community Park. It was the second most popular park in the community. How can we make that ensure that that is accessible to everyone? From the MIP, there was proposed extending the sidewalk to connect over Duxbury all the way out to Homeville on the east side of the park, with crosswalks at Duxbury and at the corner there with Homeville Avenue. Additionally, we're looking at extending the sidewalk down Duxbury where there's not a sidewalk on the park side of the road to extend to the cartway that provides the driveway access to the new pickleball courts. Now, I will mention also, this park is continuing to develop. The township acquired the parcel next door from Comcast, I believe. And so there are plans to continue to expand the park, and that is not addressed in this plan. As those plans are developing, maybe there are opportunities for some of these accessibility measures to be included. Maybe that's a separate project. Time will tell. But in addition to the sidewalk extension to the pickleball courts, we have a series of paths throughout the park that connect each amenity to the other amenities. So no matter which parking lot you find yourself parked in, you can get via an accessible path to any of the amenities within the park. And that could be the basketball courts, where currently there is an ADA accessible path from the ADA parking in that parking lot that's in the northwest corner of the park. There is a path that leads out to the basketball courts. But if someone is playing basketball on the first court and you're in a wheelchair and you want to play basketball on that farther court, you'd have to go through their game to get to that second court. So providing a path around that, and that also connects to the playground path. Additionally, you can see the interior paths connect to the sidewalks to create 2 loops around the park, so to provide a great walking loop for anyone who's looking to get a little more activity in their life. And you have the smaller loop that goes along Poplar Street and the kind of sticks to the sidewalk as it goes along the west side of the park, and then goes around up through the middle of the park, or you could go all the way around the perimeter of the park, avoiding the steep slopes that lead down to the stormwater facilities at the south end of the park. And the nice thing about that path that cuts across the kind of the middle south end of the park is it also highlights the great views you have from there out over the neighborhoods to the Neshaminy Creek. There's really, when we visited the parks in our first tour of the township in the fall, we really saw the tremendous potential for views off of that, out of Firefighters Park. Really, there's a lot of resources there to celebrate, like great views of the city. Now, looking at what that costs, it's not going to cost $48 million to do these improvements. Thank goodness. But there is a price tag, even for just building a sidewalk and a crosswalk. And we did these are high-level budgetary numbers. It may be that when these improvements are made, it could cost significantly more or less, depending on the field conditions and the other improvements that are being proposed along with it. But just if we only do we're conceptualized here on this plan, that's about $325,000. Just for a reference, just so you all have a reference to what this vision would cost on the ground. And with that, I'll transition to the second recommendation here, which is priority pedestrian and bicycle connections. We've heard that the township really wants to be able to get from your neighborhoods to your parks. And you want to be able to do that on foot and on bike. So one of the suggestions that came out of the MIP was the Queen Anne Creek Trail, which you can see runs through Cobalt Ridge and Quincy Hollow Parks, kind of along the Queen Anne Greenway there. This provides connections from Woodbourne Road to Walter Miller Elementary School and via Frosty Hollow Road across to Mill Creek, where there is already, as you know, a great system of parks along the creek and a nice existing greenway along that creek as well. And that also in the future will be able to connect to, prepare yourself for a great name, the Mill Queen Anne Black Ditch Trail, which is the Bucks County Trail that's already been proposed, and would connect a variety of trail systems, and eventually all of the trails connect to lead all the way down to the Delaware River. Another priority bicycle pedestrian connection would be between Detective Christopher Jones Memorial Park and Lance Corporal Harry J. Simmons Jr. Memorial Park. They are quite close together, but there are gaps in the sidewalk network there in that part of the town that prevent easy access from one park to another. There is, however, an existing trail within Jones Park that could connect to Simmons Park via Clearview Avenue and Brownsville Road with a rapid flashing beacon at the intersection of Clearview and Brownsville to really make sure that pedestrians are safe crossing that busy road there. That also could provide future connections along the kind of dotted green line to the future Neshaminy Creek Greenway Trail, which again is a Bucks County trail that is already being constructed in phases up. Currently the extension in Core Creek that connects to the Bridgetown Road Bridge, I believe it is, that is currently under development. But there are plans being made to extend that Neshaminy Creek Trail in both directions. It's envisioned as a 33-mile mile trail, and connecting these parks to that trail really would allow those parks to be part of this great 33-mile network of public open space. And then the last of these recommendations that I'll be presenting today before I hand it off to Derek is the open space preserves, which really are representative of the Vision 4, which is about improving access to open space and increasing the amount of open space in the township. We really think that there is a lot of open space, as we talked about in the last public meeting. There is a lot of open space that the township already manages and stewards, especially along Neshaminy Creek and the other creeks and wetlands within the community. We envision these spaces as preserves, which really celebrates the fact that they are spaces that are worthy of care and stewardship by the community. It's not just an open space, which could be a park, that could be undeveloped land, that could be an agricultural open space. But these 5 open spaces really, we think, are deserving of the term preserve and really celebrate those open spaces as the ecologically valuable spaces that they are. And those could be the Neshaminy Creek Preserve, which is along Neshaminy Creek to the west and south of Core Creek. There is an existing trail within that space, but it is a little bit hard to get to at its trailhead because of where that trailhead ends. Additionally, there's Saba Wetlands Preserve, the Langhorne Springwater Preserve, where the Langhorne Springwater Company lands are, and then the Mill Creek Preserve and Queen Anne Creek Preserves down in Levittown. And this really is about improving access to and, where appropriate, within those open spaces. Now, some open spaces, that ecological function is really not going to be compatible with a lot of people being in there, and we want to respect the value that those lands have. Not every place is the appropriate place to really get into the weeds, literally. Sometimes you just need to be able to see it from the outside. And so this is a vision of what the Mill Creek Preserve could look like. Currently, there are a number of parks that kind of fit within the Greenway, starting up in the north at Delaware Park on the other side of 295, and then extending down through Veterans Memorial Park, Forsythia Crossing Park, Upper Orchard Park, and then down and connecting at the south end to the Frosty Hollow Tennis Center, which is a Bucks County held property. It also provides this trail that you can see here in orange with a little extension through the neighborhood on sidewalks, some of which are existing and some of which would be proposed. Those connections really could serve to connect to other trails that are planned within the community as well. So this is really just a gap that we think deserves filling. Additionally, there are planned trails along the Mill Creek Greenway that Bucks County aspires to complete. So for this trail, if this were to happen, Bucks County is really going to be a great partner to pursue this trail with, because it's not just Middletown that is interested in providing trails like this. It's really the whole county that wants to be able to connect its open spaces and parks via trails. All right, and so before we get on into Vision 5, are there any comments or questions about those first 3 recommendations that we've shown you? Nicole, did you have one online? All right. Okay, so that question was, what about acquiring additional lands to connect Core Creek and, I'm sorry, what was the? Silver Lake. And Silver Lake. So that's kind of up in the northeast corner of the township. This issue was raised at the last public meeting as well. The developer who is working up in on the development in Shady Brook Farms is interested in helping to facilitate that connection. So there is the beginnings of some discussions about how that acquisition could be made with the township in collaboration with the developer. And those kind of partnerships and the interest from the developer really are the way that the township can continue to pursue acquiring additional open space where it's available. As we all know, Middletown is largely developed at this point. There's not a lot of remaining open space that is not not already preserved by the township. So acquisitions are complicated, and opportunities for acquisition are limited, but pursuing that with partners like developers who may be interested in providing access to the communities that they're developing via additional lands, that's really one of the best ways to acquire additional lands. And there may be other opportunities like this coming in the future. And so having a vision with recommendations for what kind of land the community is interested in acquiring and where that land is and how that land can be stewarded, having that vision set out makes it that much easier for a developer to come in and say, hey, I know that you want to provide a trail connection between this community A and Core Creek. I can help you acquire this land or an easement on this land to provide a trail across that land. I think saying what you want is the best way to get it. And that's really what we're trying to put into this report and into this plan, is a clear statement of what the vision for the future is, so that partners can join in the fight to create that vision and can come in and say, I can help with that. Yeah.
We spoke to Joe about this. I'm just going to ask if you could, just so the online folks can hear, if you don't mind just using the microphone. I don't know if it's easier if you just hold on to it.
We live in Silver Lake at Newtown. I've been there 40 years, and Bucks County 63 years. Wow. So we've seen a lot of change, and we welcome all the positive change. I was here before 95 was here. Our concern with the trail going through our neighborhood, I mean, we're outdoor people. We bike, we hike, we ski all over Bucks. Our concern is the proximity to the venue at Shady Brook. Mm-hmm. It gets very, very crowded. We've been enjoying it for 40 years, but we live in a private neighborhood, and our concerns is if the trail goes through our neighborhood, anybody can park on our streets and get on that trail and have access to the venues or the new stores they're putting in restaurants, and there's also going to be apartments, townhouses, and more going in that condensed area. We live on a cul-de-sac, so this is going to all change, and we're just worried about safety. We're worried about, I babysit my grandkids down there, and it's just going to open it up. Whereas a lot of the trails I think are wonderful, and they're not situated quite like we are to so many public places. We would love a trail. We would think Village Road, accessing Langhorne Yardley Road would be wonderful. Community Park, our kids in our neighborhood walk across Village to get to Community Park, which is very dangerous. Nobody stops. It's very dangerous. So I think having an access point there, if it went down Village Road, everybody can get it, all of the neighborhoods. The villas at Shady Brook, the new development, our development, I think that would be a good taking around the perimeter rather than going through. I don't know what the final plan is. I don't
know that there is a final plan yet.
Okay.
So I think this is a great opportunity to express those concerns. And also to find, maybe there are some design elements that can be employed to ensure that you remain safe in your home.
There was a neighborhood outside of Peddler's Village I think it's called Peddler's View, and they ran into this problem. When it got busy in Peddler's Village and there was no parking, people parked in the neighborhood.
Sure.
And they were able to get an ordinance that said now it's only residential parking. So, I would hate to have to come to something like that, but it's in their best interest and their safety so that people aren't parking there. So, but we think the trails are wonderful. We love them.
Well, we really appreciate hearing those concerns. The only way that we can make sure that those concerns are addressed is by hearing them. And so thank you so much for sharing that. I think everyone comes into this process with the goal of keeping everyone safe, and we really want to respect that. And I think the end goal of providing access and safe access is really that is a shared goal that everyone feels. So I think it is important for community members to share those concerns. If you have a concern about safety in your neighborhood related to a trail, by all means, don't stay quiet. Raise that issue, because there are often ways that trail could be designed or aligned so that it discourages people from coming into your neighborhood and parking on the streets to access that trail. There are ways that the amenities along that trail can be provided to encourage people to access it from elsewhere and really just use the trail as a thoroughfare rather than as the destination itself. So yeah, we definitely hear those concerns, and definitely that is being considered as the designs are being created and finalized. So thank you. Yeah.
I'm looking at this plan right here,
Mm-hmm.
and that trail essentially exists. I've been walking it for 20 years,
Sure.
so it's a good trail.
Thank you. Glad to hear it. Yeah, I think the intention with showing this trail concept was not we're not claiming to be rocket scientists here. We're just landscape architects. But I think we've heard that there is a desire for this trail to be a little more formalized than it currently is, and maybe be included in some sidewalks and really provide access to Mill Creek. And I think the other thing that I neglected to mention as I was talking about this plan is that I think that the trail is envisioned as a way to also continue to celebrate the ecological value of Mill Creek. It is not just water in the ground. It is an ecosystem. It is providing services for the neighborhood around it. And the trail should really continue to celebrate that value. And whether that is in the placement of benches so you really can appreciate the beauty, whether that's interpretive signage that allows you to understand that there are multiple layers of living beings interacting and creating this beauty in front of you, and also cleaning the water. Like, all of that is a part of the celebration of that open space as a preserved land.
I was just going to double down on exactly what Toby said. It's a transportation network, like we heard, a beautiful way to physically connect people, but it is an ecological value and also needs help, right? We can't just sort of leave places like those preserves, and that's why we want to rename them, to their own, because we have lots of conditions of invasives and things that, so this is a beautiful way, I see, of introducing people to the connection value, to the ecological, and saying, hey, this is something you can get involved in. So we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later on, but thank you for,
Yeah.
emphasizing that.
So if you go back a couple slides.
Sure.
Keep going to the first example, this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping you showed this example of what you can do in parks, and then I'm hoping you're going to have a second example of how you can make it that last half mile in the park.
Sure.
Because looking at this sidewalk, we're making a sidewalk for people that can just go through their backyard to the park, right? Instead of the people that have to cross the street
Right.
or there. So I'm hoping you're going to put forth some more connections to cross those busy roads or where crosswalks can go.
Absolutely, and a lot of those connections were proposed initially in the Multimodal Improvement Plan, and this plan really, obviously because Simone Collins worked on that plan, we are well acquainted with what was proposed in that plan, and really we're trying to make sure that this plan and that plan are compatible and can be used in combination to really present the case for what connections are possible and why those connections are important to the community. And the funders, whether that be DCNR or the Department of Community and Economic Development, or funders more broadly, they want to know why the community wants this. They want to know, and they want to know that the community wants this. It's not just an idea being put forth by the staff or by politicians. It's really the community's plan. And that's our intention with this whole plan, is to provide you, the community in Middletown, with the tools that you can have to really pursue funding for the projects that you want. And that's really what we're trying to provide. Is there anyone else who has any questions or comments before we move on? Anything else online, Nicole? All right. Well then go ahead.
I'm just curious, what's the length of that proposed trail?
This one here? Or the
Mill Creek.
I don't have an exact number for Mill Creek. I believe it's a little over 2 miles, but I may be a little off with that. All right. Well, then with that, I'm going to pass it off to Derek Dorica to discuss the next recommendation.
unlike the landscape architects, I do consider myself a rocket scientist, so we'll go from there. Again, my name is Derek Dorica. I'm the certified park and rec professional. So as part of the funding that was that is basically helping this project move along, it's required that there's a certified park and rec professional. And so these are very large ideas, some of these 20,000-foot views. And then my main responsibility during this project is to ensure that staff can actually implement a lot of these things. So when we talk about, one of the highlights was, and we heard a lot from the youth sports organizations, they had a lot of great feedback, and they're providing quite a service at no direct cost, in a lot of ways. If they weren't volunteering their time and the community still wanted those services, that would be staff that you'd be hiring to implement that. But there's a great partnership going on right now between those youth sports organizations and the township, and how do they supplement each other and how do they help each other, as they're moving along. One of the things we talked about was really about agreements that are currently in place between the youth sports organizations and the township. So making sure that they're very clear. So when you see a couple of the bullet points here, so what is the daily, weekly, yearly use of each field? Sports organization can basically request a field from April 1 to the end of November and just say, yeah, I'm using it. But it may not let other organizations, new organizations, have access to the fields as well, or general public. So having a better idea of how the fields are being used is definitely a goal that we've identified in this. Staff is on board with that, and I think also youth sports organizations understand the importance of that from a maintenance standpoint, and having a better feel for how intense fields are being used. Also introduces opportunities for maybe converting a couple of these fields to artificial turf, because they can be used more. And when you go for funding for a project like that, having that background information is really important. So I know using RecDex, which is the registration software and scheduling software that the department uses, it'll be a really good tool for that. And then when we look at the athletic associations, your athletic associations are doing a lot of maintenance on their own. They're hiring private contractors, they're doing the work themselves, and then supplemented by what the township is doing. But there needs to be just clear identification of, this is your responsibility, this is who funds this is where we partner, and this is maybe the township's responsibility. And right now, it's gray in some areas because there's a lot of valuable handshake agreements that have occurred and some written agreements as well, but we want to make sure that it's more clearly documented, and then also encouraging maybe a biannual review of those agreements and responsibilities to make sure as leadership changes over in the sports associations, as well as staff changes over in the township, everyone is aware of what the expectations are. And then when it comes to really improvements, that comes down to safety. And we want to make sure that the fields are safe for everybody. That could be for recreational play or organized play. So ensuring that if a field needs to be shut down, all parties are in agreement, but really identifying that. And that's going to be a recommendation, again, that making sure that that's part of the informal and formal agreements between the township and the youth sports organizations. And then it's about prioritizing really from what the department can do, and based on the staff that they have and where the youth sports organizations can help as well. But when we look at capital improvements, we want to make sure that we're really budgeting for operational efficiency. So what capital improvements can be made and what agreements can be in place to make sure that your tax dollars are being maximized, and making sure that there's not overuse, but also the staff understands what's the greatest priority. So this is just touching on really one of the major conversations that we had, because many of your parks are being used for active recreation, and we thought it was a good point just to, again, bring that up to the community and make them aware. Any questions about the field use and maintenance? Oh, man. Okay, then. Rocket scientist indeed. There we go. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Anita then.
I think this might be a good time. I'm going to finish up. We're at Vision 5, right? So Vision 6 is going to kind of close us out. But kind of an important thing to understand that the process that we've gone through, the listening, the fun conversations, the hard conversations, the challenges, we are at a point now where these recommendations, as you see, as lines, as not detailed drawings, getting people's buy-in to these visions. We just met with the committee this week. We'll have more conversations with them. that will drive more specifics that you'll see in the report. I don't want you all to think that this is all you're going to get, right? There's much more to it that will be developed and refined. So the more conceptual drawings, more illustrations, things to really understand what those recommendations are. But Derek, thank you for that, because his vision, Vision 5, efficiencies, using your tax dollars, helping this incredible staff do their job well for a long time, that's a really important part of this plan. All right. Implementation. How are we going to do this? How are we going to pay for it? How can we get this stuff built for you, for your children, for your grandchildren? Certainly falls under 3 basic areas. Again, a very big part of this plan. How do we plan for capital? Where are we going to get that money? How are we going to plan for it within both the budgeting of the township, and how else can we supplement that with grant applications, with fees, right, and program income? How can that bucket start to really expand? Capital planning. Infrastructure. The 3 images there are your park infrastructure, and then the second bullet point, transportation, roads, stormwater management is the flooded house picture on the bottom. That's kind of what we were talking about today as we were driving down in the thunderstorm watches, right? The point being, infrastructure, based on that slide, the costs I did for just sidewalks in a park are incredibly expensive. The combination of where we can accomplish goals for parks and stormwater, right? The township has to sort of look and be creative about how they can accomplish the many challenges, like we've listed here, and parks at the same time, right? Do we know what we want to do in the next 2 to 5 years in our parks? What are our main priorities? Are we going to be replacing water lines in some of those areas? What is the stormwater permitting? The township has to have an MS4 permit, so they've got to be aware of places to treat and manage stormwater. All of those things together become your infrastructure issue. We're going to make recommendations about that. And lastly, the policies and the ordinances that are related to the development in your township, right? We're going to make recommendations about that. So let's get started. And this was the poetic in me, so you're going to have to bear with me here. A flow chart that says, starting on the left, beautiful, desirable communities attract development. Going to the right, development according to specific township ordinances can increase and supplement open spaces and recreation amenities. Going back to Toby's question about those, development sponsors, that developers who are bringing ideas to the township, right? And certainly the supplementing the open space and recreation, parks and recreation make communities desirable and attractive, and the process starts all over again. So what I'm using this slide to preface is that development and change in townships brings good, as well as our opportunity to address things that the community needs. The graphic here starts on the left with township planning, which is what Middletown is doing. The Multimodal Improvement Plan. In 2020, the Comprehensive Plan. This plan, we're setting out the things that we want and we need. The development approvals that occur can help pay for the things that we want, transportation improvements and open spaces. The recommendations that we're going to be making under Vision 6 are going to involve zoning ordinances, an official map, which I'll briefly describe for you, and subdivision and land development ordinances. Let's start down at the bottom. Subdivision and land development ordinances are what Middletown uses to regulate what happens in development in their township. Developers who come in must abide by both the zoning and the subdivision and land development ordinances. Help pay for, I've circled. There are opportunities in subdivision and land development ordinances to collect both required land for open space as well as fees in lieu of, and sometimes combinations of both. So development applications have to prove to the township that they are going to give a certain amount of open space and or provide fee in lieu of. Those are ways that SALDO can encourage donations of land and fees to support the capital projects that we need to keep going, to keep providing those amenities. So the types of recommendations that we will be looking at under zoning ordinances is definitely to make clear definitions of what kinds of open space are the kinds that Middletown residents want. Active and passive recreation, clearly defining what those spaces could be used for. In the middle of the ordinance discussion is a tool, a planning tool called the official map. Putting on a map the things, the public improvements that can be made for a township right on the map. And those are really important planning tools so that everybody knows what's important to Middletown to acquire. Let's take a quick look at what an official map is. So again, it's the intersection of the planning efforts, what we've identified that are important and needed as public necessities and public goods, and then putting them on a map, which then drives us to those zoning and SALDO ordinances that may require being looked at again. So our work in Vision 6 is to look at this in Middletown and make recommendations about how we can maximize ordinances to get what Middletown residents feel is important to them in the areas of recreation and open space. So we've done the MIP in 2023. That's great planning. We're doing our Park Rec Open Space Greenway Trails. That's underway. Putting what we know we want and what we've identified in these planning efforts on a map is something that we will make as a recommendation. And official maps are, regulated by the Municipal Planning Code in Pennsylvania, how you can do them. But basically, they come with great benefits. They show exactly, save times and money by informing property owners and developers of municipal goals in advance. So people look at the map and know that they want a trail from this area to this area, right? Oops, losing my decorations here. It supports other land use management tools, and with the comprehensive plan, which Middletown has, certainly helps secure grants. It is basically indicating that the municipality has an interest in acquiring or having some control of land for the public good. Just to give you, oops, use something here. There we go. There we go. This is an example of a township we work with in Chester County called East Fallowfield. A very simple official map. If you can just look at the colors, the blue is public land that they would like to acquire. And in red is the proposed trails that they would like to construct. Very simple, and then in the bottom they have the supervisors who've approved that. So having that map available knows that if a developer is coming into one area, that they should be looking to show a trail through that property. You can kind of see they've developed a network on their eastern side and one on their western side that connects in. So this isn't the same as we talked about rocket science, and there's many different types around, but this was a great illustration of the kind of official map that we believe would be beneficial in Middletown. Are we through that? Yeah, I guess we are. Let's stop right there. There's got to be questions for those issues that we talked about for implementation. Is there anything I can answer? Okay. Next steps. Closing the public survey on June the 1st. Actually, that's the date that we had initially thought would make sense because we are now in the process of that certainly can be extended, Patrick and Paul, if we need to. There's no set stone in that, but we can talk about that. At some point, I think you stop and then you just sort of, synthesize. So June 1st was the date that we had picked, so that's just a couple weeks. Maybe we can get to the 2,000. That's Paul's desire, so let's see if we can do that. Next step, again, developing, refining, putting the graphics to explain all of those recommendations. We've shown you like 3 or 4 in a gross way. When we actually number them out, like currently our list now is like close to 50 under those 6 visions. They'll be explained more and developed, again, so that Patrick and Paul have this right by their desk, and it's their Bible for the next 10 years. We're going to review that draft report with the committee at the end of June. We're going to take a week to take their comments to heart and to put them in and publish the draft report on July 2nd, at which point the DCNR who funded requires 45 days of public comment. We'll send it to all of those stakeholders that we spoke to during the process so they have a copy and they know. Included in that will be all of the results of the survey, all of the notes from every meeting, everything that basically confirms that it was a robust public process and we talked to as many people as we could. That, again, is an insurance on going after funding for some of this. That was a really robust process. We'll incorporate those comments after August 21st, send a link to the supervisors for the review and present it for their approval, again, on September 8th. If they don't take action that night and request maybe additional things into the report, we'll do that, and they will hopefully approve that as well, so that the plan then becomes an official part of the planning documents for the township, if everyone is in agreement there. So those are the next steps, and the next public meeting, again, will be for you, and an announcement through all these great media and newsletters that they send out, reminding you about the survey. They'll remind you, take a look at this online. You're going to want to look at it, and we still want your feedback. So that is that, and I open it up to questions or comments, anything we missed, one thing you'd like us to see, putting in there. Anybody? Come right back. Could you come right up again? I'm sorry. No.
Would the township possibly consider a splash park?
It's a generational project.
Yeah, because
We'll
the
add it to
closest
the-
is Bristol or Northeast Philly, and I think the kids in Middletown Township would love something like that.
Right, water, that did come up. The pool concept was definitely
It's a lot
tossed
safer
around.
because you don't have to worry about,
guards, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just
exactly.
water.
Beautiful water.
So-
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second. Yeah. There we go. Good, thank you. The pool was definitely an important part. It is in many places, right? It's great childhood memories, and the expense, as Derek knows, of maintaining them, and it's not undertaken lightly, that's for sure, but it is a wonderful thought. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Middletown. Thank you for coming out under threat of flooding and for supporting us. And yeah, we will be back. So thank you. Toby?
And I'll just add that this is not your only opportunity to provide feedback. If you wake up in the middle of the night tonight and you have a question about these ideas, our contact information is here. This presentation will be posted online, so you have our contact information. Please, any ideas you may have that you haven't gotten to share with us, we would love to hear that. We'd rather hear more than less. We'd rather have to trim some fat than not have enough to feed the plans with. So please do share your thoughts whenever they occur to you.
Not in the middle of the night. We didn't put phone numbers up there. We're good. Thanks again.